Welcome to the Home Team Sacramento podcast. I'm Josh Takimoto, and with us today is an athlete that comes from our home team here in Sacramento. He's a former D1 football player and the director of student advancement for the for Compassion and Education Development, also known as ACE. Nifae Lealao. What's going on, man?
Hey Josh, thanks for having me. It's great to be back. I'm just ready for another great podcast.
Man, I was telling, like I told you just a couple minutes ago, I was telling my wife because every night she's like, "Hey, who's on the podcast tonight? Who's on the podcast?" And I'm like, "Well, it's Nephi." And she's like, "Oh, it was amazing last time." I said, "Yeah, I'm not even worried. I'm never worried about our guests, but sometimes, if you're just meeting the person for the first time, you don't know how it's going to go. But when we know the person, it's like, oh, this is like family. This is like podcast
Yeah,
family. So, this is
right.
gonna be a fun conversation, man. I'm looking forward to it. So, how's everything going?
Everything's going great. When you asked me about the podcast about a week ago, I just, after the first one, like you said, it went well for me. So I was ready for it to go well once again.
Yeah, and I'll say this, man. A lot of people, and I told you this back then. I'm gonna say it again. A lot of people love you, man, because of the amount of people that commented, shared, reached out about that podcast. It was pretty crazy. So that's always a good
That's right.
indicator for how much impact and how much influence a person has. A guest that we have on the show, it's like when that many people reach out, it's like, whew, you know. Let's say the same. We have a couple other guests. That same thing, like our friend Kira McKechnie. She's the head softball coach over at Christian Brothers High School. Man, when we have her on the podcast,
Oh, we're in the same class.
oh, you know Kira?
Oh, yeah. She played
She's
basketball too, right?
I think so. I think she played basketball. Her
Yeah,
main
she's
thing was
kind of
softball.
tall.
Super tall.
Softball, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's what's up. Oh,
Yeah,
that's tight.
Kira's dope. And yeah, but same thing, man. Like when we post an episode with her, like all of her family and friends and former athletes, like they all come out to show that
Mm,
support and love. So it's always fun, man. Like I said, this podcast is all about the home team here in Sacramento and the surrounding areas. And I couldn't think of a better person to have on this podcast than you, man, because and we'll jump into it a little bit, but you graduated
yeah.
from Capital Christian High School, went off to college, which I want you to talk a little bit about, but then you eventually came back here to do what you're doing now. But um, tell me a little bit about that, man. Like obviously you played at Capital, and then kind of take us from Capital. What was your athletic journey like from there?
Yeah. So back in 2010, a lot of us didn't really expect for what had happened to happen, and I think we started with the dream, and then, me personally, it was just more about how good can Nephi do? How great can Nephi be? And what legacy do I want to be left, when I'm gone? So that's kind of been my motivation every day. Although all of us had individual missions, I think my personal one was just in some way like the revolving theme around my life, I think up until that point was how unstoppable I was on the field or on the court. And I think I just elevated that mentality and grew with it. And I think that over the course of my high school journey, I think that's what kind of came about so much success, whether it was a section title here in basketball, a open NorCal finish, or a tournament win, or being an All American. So I think, like, for me, I had a very a high school experience that people would dream to have. And so I think that now coming back, so sorry, I don't want to skip ahead. So played about four varsity sports since freshman year at Capital. Back then, even in 2010, Capital was like so unfamiliar with the world, and everybody didn't really know what we had here. And I think by 2014, when I had graduated with a lot of other my brothers that we still talk to this day, and kind of expanded our talents across many different industries, I think that's what kind of separated us from a lot of other teams within the last decade or so. And I think that just kind of helped me in my own personal journey. So that after high school, uh, I was blessed to be an All American, fortunate to have a bunch of offers across the whole country, and I ended up playing football at Vanderbilt University, anchor down, baby.
There you go.
I think that it wasn't a decision I wanted to make. So I think that's why God kind of set me over there and helped me out with it. And as I kind of went through my journey there, Uh, did well on the field, saw the field as a freshman, as a true freshman, and ended up starting every year since after that. Every rotational player at the beginning, which eventually I started to find my niche. And once I kind of got to that second spring ball and I was kind of in my groove, things started to shake. My first dean's list, plaque came in, and I got a couple of academic honor rolls, and so now I'm starting to gather attention like it was in high school, and so I'm trying to. We're establishing a poly pipeline. I'm highest rated recruit in Vanderbilt history. I'm coming in with the 96, so I'm kind of feeling myself, but I was not kind of like, at my peak yet. So I'm kind of really excited to see how much more I can do because I kind of came out of high school with not the probably as best shape that I could have been in, but I was still able to produce. And I think once I got towards like halfway through college and I was really locked in, things started to skyrocket for me, and I loved it. Found my group. I pledged the best fraternity in this on this planet, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, '06 to the Ice Cold Brothers of Alpha. And I think that, oh yeah, shout out to my guys. I think that that really that shaped my perspective, and I think that it changed the trajectory of my life in a way that I was able to kind of draw a fine line between like, young Nephi and it's time to grow up Nephi. So my maturation process was a pretty long one, over there at Vandy, but I think that it helped me a lot. So when I came back, I didn't really want a lot to do with sports. I was fortunate enough to be UDFA with the Jets. So I was in Newark for a little bit, but I kind of found it to be like something I didn't want to keep doing. I just kind of hit the burnout bad, and I know people talk about it more now. And so it's been years since I've been able to talk about it. So to be here as a coach, and to kind of like fast forward through all that. So that's kind of what happened to me. I now since 2020, which I actually have a weird story about that. Back in 2020, if it wasn't really for one of my family friends, she was a parent. Her son was a freshman when I was a senior at the time, and she, you kind of just have family friends that you gain through sports that they're just kind of, oh, they're family, like that's just kind of your people's. And so
Yeah, for sure.
since sports was so much of my life, like I didn't think that that was going to bring me to coaching. Like a simple text with her, the new head coach, Coach Potts over there. Then you got AG over there as the AD. There's so many connection with my life and everybody else is over there, and I'm kind of like, dang, like I'm not trying to coach. Like I didn't think that it wasn't in my path. Like I didn't think it was on my track just because like when I came back, yeah, I was doing a lot of stuff that I wasn't happy doing. I don't think I for sure knew I wasn't content with where I was. And so I think that, 2018 to 2020, that was my post period of growth. And I think that post graduation growth. And I think that once I kind of got adult life a little bit under me and started to get used to what was going on right now, then the idea of coaching came in and we're kind of here. So then I'm kind of like, man, so since then, it's crazy because in 2020, it's 10 years literally after June 2020 is 10 years after I started in June 2010 as a football player, and I started Capital. So
Yeah.
there's just so many, God's kind of showing me so many doors, and I'm just trying to make sure I hit them all.
Man, I love that. Yeah. And it's yeah, you have a crazy story. And in fact, I would, as a lot of people on this podcast know, we started off doing character combine podcasts with my friend Deb. Make sure you guys go back and check out Nephi's episode, because in that episode we go way more in depth about your story, how you got into Vanderbilt, like all the craziness with your dad tricking you onto the plane, like all that stuff. Like it's a hilarious story. So
Man.
I would definitely recommend you guys go check that out. It's still up, and you guys can go check that out. But let me ask you this, man. So I don't know how I missed this last time when I was doing my research. Somehow I just missed it, but I found it tonight, probably about 30 minutes before we start recording. And hopefully this is okay to ask you. One of the things that popped up about you when I just Googled your name was a little clip from a post game after Kansas State, and you made a comment about, "Hey, Alabama, you're next." And I guess that turned into a little bit of a thing. What was that your first experience with like dealing with like that social media craziness?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people don't understand what it's like to go viral, whether it's good or bad. I think,
Yeah.
for you, whether the intentions were, if there were intentions or whether it was unintentional, it's just the spirit of the game. And so there were no ill intentions of that. People kind of made it more than what it was. And I'm just saying, like, hey, when you come off a ranked win like that, and if nobody else in the country is expecting you to do other things, that's kind of why I appreciate the underdog mentality, just because that we were in an unexpected place. And we were 3-0 just like them, and just as unexpected as it was that the whole country started talking about it. So it was
Right.
kind of like, it's some I control what I can control. Obviously, that may have not controlled that the way I probably should have at that time, but it's nothing I regret because I still came and played hard. And we made the first couple of plays over there. I don't think everybody must have forgot that. So, but I
Right.
just thought I appreciated that just because it's, when you get to play the best of the best, that's why I went there. No matter kind of like
Yeah.
where it's going to be, I wanted to get a great education, think about the 40-year, not 4-year decision, and play some good ball every weekend. I was able to do that at Vandy. Many career rank wins, many great players we played against, Tucky Chubbs, Todd Gurley, Dak Prescott, Tua,
Jeez.
Jonah Williams. There's so many people we played against every day and week in, week out. And I just appreciate it all because I felt like that's truly why I came back to coach, because I found my love for the game.
Yeah, I love that, man. No, I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed watching that clip. I thought it was funny, and it's kind of like what however many years ago there was that whole Richard Sherman issue, right, where he came off the field after the interception in the end zone, and then was talking trash about Michael Crabtree, and people had an issue with that. But I think, and you would be able to speak to this more. I think what people didn't realize in that moment is like you're getting him right. I mean, minutes after this huge moment of like he's just hyped, right? Like he's just hyped up, all that adrenaline, all that energy, and now you're asking him this question about something that's so intense. Of course, you're gonna be excited. Like you said, you guys had a huge win, and of course, I mean, you're gonna have a response like that. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah. So I just think the energy was great. The environment was so humid and hot, but I don't know. We're over here running around, and the clock's winding down, and we're kind of winning the way we won that game and for how it was. Yeah, whether I said it like that or I said I meant to say it, I really don't think anybody would have even cared or mattered because they would still watch it. But I will say that the NIL deal came a little later because I should still be getting paid for that right now. If
Yeah,
that was really what we should be talking about.
man, 100%, man. Just that's gotta be such a. I mean, I'm sure you don't seem like the kind of guy that looks back all the time and wonders like what if and what could have been. But that is one of those things that I'm sure that a lot of college guys are thinking about, with the recent changes and what could have been as far as that
Yeah.
financial benefit. Like, yeah, that would be a tough thing to kind of look back at and like, dang, like that would have been nice.
Yeah, but I appreciate it though because I'm all for it. I really do think that, and don't get me wrong, because I just want to make sure I say this right. Because I have a bunch of students who didn't want to participate in college or participate in athletics at that level, and so, but they were able to, but they still went for academics, and so I had a hard time kind of explaining kind of the dichotomy of that understanding, just because it's a very fine line on the student athlete and a regular student. So I just think that this kind of helps kind of put us in that motion just to kind of promote some sort of equality, just because, man, there are just some school like Vandy is not like Stanford, and Stanford and them are not like Northwestern and Notre Dame, but like everybody's different because then UF, Auburn, all them, they're all going to be different. And so once I kind of seen that even the top schools had their like differences, I think I appreciated Vandy's more and just kind of my experience at the same time.
Right. And all of this experience and knowledge and insight that you have has to be such an amazing like tool for you and what you're doing right now. Like I said, you're the director of student advancement for ACE. And I mean, like, I know that they love you over there. I think that's pretty clear. But I mean, man, like how lucky. I'm gonna say it for you because you're not gonna say it, but like I feel like they're incredibly lucky to have someone like you there every single day. The students are incredibly lucky because you have so much experience and so much knowledge, and you played at such a high level. And not only played at
Yeah.
a high level, but because like some guys, they do pretty good in high school, and then once they grow a little bit more and get bigger and stronger, then like they take off in college, right? But you were like highly recruited in high school, so you've been playing this game at a high level for a long time. And so I imagine that the students you work with on a daily basis are just clinging to what you're saying, or is that not true? Are they still giving you a hard time?
No,
Yeah.
I think I get so spoiled with the kids because they gonna sometimes I feel like they love me too much that I just, man, I get so lost in it just because I like I'm literally their biggest fan. You know, I was just talking. We were on an interview for a new A student the other day, and Shireen even said that I am their biggest cheerleader, and she's not lying. Like when it comes to the kids and kind of supporting, like I was kind of jumping the gun, but when I came back to coach, I started off coaching, being the varsity D line coach, and as a youngin, I'm not really thinking about that. We're going through COVID, and so I'm kind of figuring out my way here because I didn't really have. I was working at Lovesac before I even coach, and so I coached before I even started at Ace, and so there are so many other things going on. I'm working at Champ still, and I'm kind of working through a lot of things, like and football is kind of making its way back in here, and so once I kind of developed that, this past year is probably my first like real good swing on doing all of them. So then over the last 3 years, so I've coached 4 sports, which I kind of probably will still be doing for the rest of my time until I don't. So it'll be varsity football for the D line, and I help out the O line as well. It's my D block. Now we're going back to talk about them later, and we talk about the next level opportunities because I know that's kind of why we're here to showcase some of the home team talent,
Yeah.
and then varsity boys and girls basketball, which is a crazy thing, coaching girls finally, and then kind of when you have family on the team versus coaching boys and you're close with the kids, and then coaching varsity track the last 2 years as the head throw coach. And so there's been so much going on, being asked to coach volleyball, having a really big imprint on the students' lives, and just supporting, like our softball team did so well this way. There were so many different things, people making history, and it's starting to feel like how it was back when we were here. And I think that the kids are just kind of reaching like the peak of what it's going to feel like, because this year is about to really be an even better movie. And I think that that's why the daily stuff, like you say, as I come back to it, that's why I feel like I get spoiled so much, because although like I feel like I absorb a lot of their energy, I think I learned how to compartmentalize to make sure that I needed to give them what they needed. But sometimes I feel like they forget that they teach me probably more than they think.
That's interesting because I feel like a lot of we've had some. I mean, all of our guests are amazing, but we've had some coaches on here that have been like legends, like Mary Jo Truesdell, the softball coach at Sheldon. She's
Oh
a
snap! For real?
she's a legend,
Ooh,
legend,
yeah.
and that's she said something very similar to what you said. It's like the biggest asset to her being a coach, and the biggest thing she's learned over all these years is you got to listen as a coach, listen to your athletes, because what they're going to tell
Yeah.
you a lot of times, to your point, they're teaching you a
Yep.
lot of stuff if you're willing to listen. Now if you're a coach that's not willing to listen and it's like my way or the highway, I don't want to hear anything else, you're going to miss a huge opportunity. But the fact that you say that, man, I mean, it makes sense why these athletes and these student athletes and just the students in general connect with you so much, is because you are willing to
Yeah.
listen and you do have a big heart for seeing them be successful. So um and yeah, like what you said, Shireen said that you're their biggest cheerleader. Shireen, we know that Shireen would never say that if she didn't mean it, right? And so when
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
says it, she means that for sure, which is awesome, man. um so let me ask you this: what well, no, first of all, I want to go back to this. So you coach 4 sports, and then someone still asks you if you wanted to coach volleyball.
Oh yeah. Only because
Dang, man.
these sports, like I actually played them all, other than obviously girls basketball. But you know, back then, our basketball teams were going to ARCO at the same time, and that's not a normal thing for schools to be doing
Yeah.
year in and year out. And so the fact that we were able to cut our high school, trips in half and actually do that twice together, those kind of things made me want to like get more involved after football. And so I know I was asked varsity boys, and then my cousins were hopping on the team for girls, and they were like, "Oh, why don't you come out and help?" And I'm thinking, "Dang, like, so we already have work, we already have school, and then after school, school starts at 3. So boys are practicing till 5:30, girls got 5:30, 7:30. So literally, the last year I did that, and then we got the track,
Dang.
I did that, and so you know what, I'll do it over again, because if we were able to get playoffs, for the football team, we would have reached playoffs at every season that I had coached and actually helped coach. And I think I enjoy not being the head coach sometimes, just because although I like assume so much responsibility because I want to be, I want the kids to have the best of the best because I know what it could take, especially walking the halls that they walk,
Yeah.
that it was just another kind of venture to allow me to appreciate them, but also get back to hooping. And I think I hoop better now than I did back in the day. So there's just,
There you go.
that, and then track. It's been so much, like, because I never really did track like that either. And I did by my senior year to win league MVP. But when you coach the next league MVP and you used to win it means something different to you. So I'm kind of like, that's kind of what we've been doing. And so I'm just kind of appreciative to do that with, friends that I grew up with. And I think that God's really moving a lot of pieces of the puzzle because I don't think everybody knew that at some point in my life, I had already seen everybody who's pretty much in a head coaching point or a coaching position or just kind of in another position of influence for our kids. So being in that sector again and just kind of day in, day out, everyone's asking kind of what the formula is. How do you do this? And I'm just like, man, you just got to be yourself. That's it. That's really it.
That's it. Man, I feel like you should just probably like move a bed into your office and just sleep there because you're basically there all the time anyways, man. Jeez.
No, like no, there's a big old love sack, and I think like I don't know if you can really see it, but it's this one right here. This one's in
There you
our
go.
actually in each of our offices at the play suite. So I just love it because we all call it. Shreen calls it like that's the so we just sit over there and just talk about life. So the kids will sit in there, and we each have one. So at some point in time, if it's not all of us together, then so we're just kind of one on one, or just kind of helping everybody out going through what they're going through.
Yeah, I was actually in the office a few weekends ago. I was doing a recording there.
Oh
And yeah,
yeah.
Shereen was kind enough to let me use the office. And I saw all those love sacks. And I'm like, man, I'm jealous. I couldn't have that in my office. Like where I work, I'm like, this would be a problem. This would be a huge
No,
problem.
really.
Yeah. But for what you
Absolutely.
guys do
Oh,
makes a ton of sense. Just let the kids get comfortable there. And then, like you said, have
yeah.
those life conversations, which I think is cool. Now, let me ask you this with, obviously, like I've mentioned a couple of times, you're really good at connecting with the students, and it's obvious because like you said, they kind of flock to you, like they all want to be around you, they all want to be in your presence, and they all want to gain that insight and that knowledge from you. So I mean, you kind of already said it, you said be yourself, but if there's a coach that's listening that is maybe struggling, maybe they're an amazing tactician when it comes to on the field strategy, but when it comes to actually connecting with the athletes and um, making those better connections, they struggle with it. Like, what would your advice be to them? Obviously, you said be yourself, but like besides that, what would be some practical steps to connect with their athletes better?
Wow. You know what, Josh? It's so crazy because I feel like my whole life I've said this just because I've been familiar with the word, but I feel like this is the best way to explain this coaching practice. Growing up, I always kind of like when things weren't ever going my way, or I kind of was just frustrated with an outcome that I wasn't expecting. It took me a minute, but once I got towards middle school, high school, and I started to become more mature during, this whole maturation process of my adolescence, that, I started to understand that our ways are not, his ways. And I think that as a coach, it literally, Coach Patu, says this all the time. It works in football, works in life. And honestly, that is one of the things that just correlates so well because it has great synergy with what's going on already. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of true. If you don't listen, you're not going to really get honestly anything, and there's not going to be anything for you to work on if you're not going to want to be open to receive that. And so I think what goes into that and being yourself, along with like both the player and the coach. As far as the coach, I would say kind of one of the biggest things that I learned, other than just doing it with the kids and showing them that I could do, and I've literally done it. I love that because I like practice with them, and they always joke, and I say, you know what? If you could beat me, you could beat anybody in the country. And I just think that's literally my biggest
Yeah.
example. And I've used that to my advantage because over the last 3 years, I have about 8 seniors in my D line, O line, group. And there's about like 16 altogether for JV and varsity. All 8 seniors have at least one full ride offer in my
Wow.
group. And so I'm just saying, like, that's not normal. And so our team as a whole probably has about 12 before the season even starts. That's
Wow.
Kanye, KO. We got Ty Kubicek, Tito Mavaj. There's so much. Like there's a lot going on. And so I think that God was really trying to prepare me for something like that, because answering that question, it's like, dang, like I've done it with him. We've talked about it, and we've thought about it mentally, physically, and spiritually. So I felt like the biggest cutthroat piece of it all was just understand that your ways aren't their ways, and they're gonna have to understand that too. But I feel like once you find that middle ground, this showing you care, I think it goes a long way. Telling somebody you care, asking somebody how their day is. So showing care and just kind of being open to just new possibilities.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that's again, that's something a lot of coaches that have come on here have said. Coaches and trainers, like, man, you gotta, once you show them that you care, that's when those doors start opening up, and that's when the true impact can start happening. Because like, why, like, if they don't think you care, why are they going to listen to you? It doesn't make any sense, right? You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah,
going to go
even
one,
for the
like,
littlest things. Yeah,
yeah,
just like that.
100%, even the littlest things. You know what I mean? Like, it could be, I mean, whatever it may be, like the smallest task on the field or the biggest thing that you're trying to get across to
Hmm.
them. Like, if they don't think you care, then it's all going to fall on deaf ears, unfortunately. um
Yeah,
and it's so cool, man. I love what you said too, and I like that you acknowledge the fact that your experience playing at that next level, at that higher level, is something that is a huge advantage for you as a coach now. Because like, it's such a cool thing, because we talk all the time about how these disciplines, whether you have, you were riding the bench your entire career, or you were a starter that went D1, whatever, and anything in between, like whatever your role was as an athlete, those principles, those skill sets, those life lessons you learn on the field can be carried with you for your entire life. And so for
yeah,
you, obviously you have all of those lessons, the things that you learned, and how to, resiliency and determination and work ethic, all that stuff. But you also just have this incredible background as a D1 athlete. So when you're talking to these athletes now,
yeah.
you could probably still get out there and get after it, right? Like you said, you still work out with them, and like,
Oh yeah, and I'll be making sure I'll be giving them this work, just because I feel
yeah.
like if I really, that's just the easiest way for me to train them, and I don't hurt nobody, and I don't really go too hard. I make sure that there are boundaries, just because like I understand that these are still kids, but
Yeah, and
I
you could hurt
like,
him if you wanted to.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but thankfully I've never had to want to do that, so they've
Yeah.
been okay, like very great
Yeah.
communicators.
That's
But
good. That's good.
I enjoy it. Like I just think it allowed me to be free, and I think for years I wasn't. I fell out of love with the game and just sports in general. And I think that this day by day, day in day out, is starting to make me love it more. And honestly, truly, the last couple months, once I see my last senior get his first offer, all of them got it before we started, and things are just rolling. Like we just started dead period this week, and I think that we probably couldn't have been in the best position. Honestly, we could have been, probably in the last couple of years that anybody would have thought of. So I'm really excited to see all this come to fruition by our season.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit more about your role with ACE. Obviously, I've said it a couple times, student or director of student advancement, but
Yeah,
like, tell us a little bit about what that means and what you do on the daily.
yeah. So like you said, that is really my title, and that title probably expands into just about a million different hats. Which, if I could add another hat, I would, just because I felt like my role and how I do it, and there wasn't somebody there when I was there to be in this role when we needed it. And I think that I could have benefited from that. DJ could have benefited from that. Tyler Shimp could have benefited from that. Shoot, even Marcellus could have benefited from that. So there
Oh,
are
Marcellus.
just
Yeah.
there are just so many things that people don't even know we all grew up together. Like we have one of our brothers playing on Team Nigeria right now, and on top of everything we're
Really?
doing, Justice is working in Goldman and Sachs right now. We were just all taking pictures of our Apple cards and sending it to each other. That's
Yeah.
how close the brotherhood we established here, from just picking up an orange ball and putting it through a hoop. It kind of guided us to do all this. And then a lot of kids, I think a lot of the students, like, when they're coming, they see me talk to one of them or see me repost, and they're like, oh, let me get a picture. How do you know them? Da, 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 da. Once they start seeing our pictures at the suite and kind of going through all that, I enjoy talking about our experience, because I felt like back then, like, it was just Shireen. So it
Yeah.
was like, man, like there was no suite. There's not even like, she had a cubicle, but even that cubicle, when she started giving out snacks, it didn't really start that much when we were all there. But
Yeah.
she literally kind of like, really not kind of, but she really anchored down and took care of all of us, from the beginning all up until this point for the last 12 years. So being able to kind of work as like, more of a case management capacity. So I pretty much handle all the day-to-day stuff. Me and John pretty much work in tandem. He'll do all the behind the scenes and statistical stuff, and I'll be hitting the ground running, and I'll go do all the stuff in person. So I'll do all the intervention and prevention work with the teachers and kind of like guiding them to leverage our, tutors or any sort of support service that we offer as a nonprofit, as ACE for our kids. And that just kind of goes for a bunch of things. And then once we do extra events like the Napa Live Experience event we just came back from
Oh
over in
yeah.
Napa couple weeks ago. We just got those. That's kind of where we're at right now, and I think that we're able to take some kids over there. So most of our 22s, Des, Anthony, CJ, Cam, and Grace, we're able to go with us to kind of showcase. And it's more of a celebration for them because they just graduated, kind of be
Yeah.
around a couple celebrities. If you get to be around a couple Hall of Famers, no matter what sport, pretty sure you'll be okay, and that'd be a good grad present for
100%.
anybody.
100%.
So I get to do all that, and that's pretty much what I do. So I get to see the kids every day, and so we also partnered with Coach Fatu and started. He had a similar program in Seattle, so we started our GD program, and that pretty much stands for the Game Day program, and that's literally the same type of case management work. However, it also encompasses now the football team as we start to kind of do more case management work per sports teams as we replicate the college model like they do in honestly every D1 school and in college in general, and we start to kind of get these methods in practice in play. Then that's kind of where we started it with this. So we have the GD program, we got ACE, and we got the program advisor right here. And so I think for the last year, we just started it in terms of the GD program and ACE together as a conjoining partner. But, I've been with ACE for about a year now, and it was probably the fastest year of my life. So I just think that with that came like, the kids that I've been around. I mean, we have the Scholar Athlete of the Year, to the female athlete of the year, the male athlete of the year, and those were all the
Wow.
kids that I pretty much grew up with before I even got here. And those are their siblings are my younger people's, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
being able to kind of be with them and just kind of impart some wisdom, whether it was, little or big, like doing SAT rounds again, going through hoop season, football season, track season, and just kind of seeing their growth is what made me appreciate coaching even more because then on top of that, I'm just sitting back and just watching. I'm here for the ride because they already did all the work. I think we did it all. They just gotta just go have fun now.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, and kind of going back a little bit too, I like what you said earlier about um um how you're still close with these guys, some of these guys that um would have really benefited from what you're doing right now, the Justices, Marcellus, Tyler, um DJ, like all of these guys that competed with, and the fact that you guys are still in contact, you guys are still close, like that just to me, again, the name of this being home team, like I think it just highlights the importance of the place where you come from, right? Like the place where you grew up, the place where you compete and go to high school, and that home team of Sacramento, I feel like is a really important thing for all of us to stay rooted in. And that's one of the things I love about a lot of people from, and I'm sure a ton of people that that have grown up here, that have played sports here, or went to school here, and they seem, most of them, not everybody, but most of them have this special connection and want to give back
Yeah,
to the city, which I think is a dope thing. And obviously with everything that you're doing, man, I mean, you're giving back to the city every single day with the work that you're doing, and I think that's pretty cool because I think it just, it takes everything that you gain from the city, and you get to pour back in and make it even better for the
all
next
right.
generation of athletes, which I think is really cool.
Mm.
So yeah, I love that, man. It's got to be a fun job too. You know what I mean? Because like every day, it's not a
Yeah,
normal job, right? Like every day is
every
exciting,
day is different. Yeah,
man.
that's
Especially dealing
actually
with
what
high
I told
schoolers.
Shireen.
Yeah,
Right, because
yeah,
that's what I told Shireen. I was like, yeah, I need me a job where everything is just different. And it's just crazy because we talk about like how the kids kind of look at even some essential as social media because Cameron Salerno, who works for the B, he had just
Yeah.
posted something about like the top players from 2012. And so I'm looking at the list and I just see I'm tagged and I'm like, how far down the list am I right now? Because I'm just thinking about it. And then I'm just like,
Yeah.
Coach, they're like, Coach, did you see it? And I'm like, no, I didn't see it, but I see a notification. Like, what does it say? And we're laughing about it. And they were like, yeah, going over the names. And I'm like, Eric, yeah, it should be. Then Eddie, yeah, it should be. Then Shaq, yeah, it should be. And then I think I'm going down the line. Then there's Daniel, and then there's me and DJ Johnson, at Oregon. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh, hold on, did that say number 6? Okay,
Yeah.
they say since 2012.
Hey, come on, man. You
Okay,
cracked the top 10.
okay. And
Yeah.
I'm good. But
Yeah.
I wasn't able to make the all decade team. So I was like, maybe I just not was not for me. So then, I joked about it. And then the kids remember that joke from years ago when we didn't make it. Because when I didn't make it for either sport, I was like, man, I don't want to hear none of these lists no more. Because obviously I just wasn't supposed to be on it. And so
Yeah.
when Cam put that one out, I was just kind of laughing just because it's old news now. They're buried the hatchet. And, Joe and them, they put out great stuff, and I think that they put out so many things to kind of help us get noticed in a way that sometimes people like to overlook the capital, but there's just so much talent here
Right.
that we could we could have been made Sac State and one of the number one schools in the country a long time ago if we all kind of stuck around, and I think everybody would agree to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the end of the day, man, you'll always be competitive. You know what I mean? Like, even though you said at one point,
Yeah.
you kind of burnt out with football and you weren't expecting to go back to coaching, like, at the end of the day, you're still an athlete, you're still a competitor. And so, you know, good for you. If you can stay away from looking at those lists, good for you. I know I could not. If I was, I've never been close to any of those lists. I'm just the one that reads the list. But man, if I was on those lists, man, I would have such a tough time not looking at those things. I know myself too well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But good for you. If you can stay away from the list, good for you.
I mean, it ain't easy because
Yeah.
growing up, and then the kids like they look at it. They'll come in my office. I have my letters in there from what I could find, and it's still a lot, but it just promotes conversation. And I know
Sure.
kids are coming. They're coming. They're not coming to Capital without any goals, and so that's why I put it in there. And I think at first there were probably some hesitation with some of the kids. They're like, "Are you just putting it out there just to have it?" And I say, "No, like because." When you're talking to guys like Christian McCaffrey and you're at the Army All American game with them and Joe Mixon, and we're talking about kind of just little things that we aimless stuff that dude, we can have regular conversations, but to everybody else, they see us as these high profile athletes that aren't normal human beings that we could have
Right.
normal human conversations. And so when we're talking about stuff that we used to do during the recruiting process, like for me it was sleeping on them letters. Like I slept on that Stanford letter till I got it, and at 16 I got it. So you know what I
Yeah.
mean. And those kind of experiences, that's where I felt like more than a game came about. That's why we be liking stuff like that. And then the game stands tall comes about, and for us to be the first group to watch that, movie when it came out. And so, and for, Ace to be designed based on Coach Phillips watching The Blind Side, like my whole life, I felt like I just played in these sort of patterns of, blessings, if for lack of a better word. And so I just think that I'm not really changing the status quo. I'm elevating with it right now. I think it's going pretty high right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got a couple more questions for you. And like I said, I try to keep this around 45 minutes if possible. Sometimes I
Yeah.
go a little bit long, but um, I have this question written down. I'm gonna try to word this the best I possibly can. It's a little bit wordy, but so obviously, and you know this, when a lot of these guys, girls, guys that compete at the high school level and go on to play college, like when they're in high school, they're the best of their school, sometimes the best of their city. Then they go to the college level, and all of a sudden, oh, it's the best from everywhere. So no, you're not necessarily the big dog anymore, right? Like you're
Yeah.
just as good, maybe even a little worse than some of the people around you, depending on your situation. And you have to kind of get used to that again, right? So we've all heard that. We know how that goes. And then obviously each level you go up, you continue to, filter out the people that can't make it. And then it's just the best of the best, the higher you go. So that's
Mhm.
talent, right? That's what we're talking about, like talent, ability, skill. But what about leadership, right? Like you have leaders at the high school level. When they go to that next level, does that
Hmm.
leadership still carry on with them, or is it kind of the same thing where everybody's technically a leader and only like the truly great leaders at that level will really have an impact at the next level? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Uh, Sorry. Ask that last part one more time. I'm trying to wrap my head around that last
Yeah,
part.
yeah. Like I said, it wasn't the best, not the best worded question, but I'm trying to
Yeah.
articulate it the best I can. Like, obviously, skills, and how they translate to the next level is one thing. But when it comes to leadership and an athlete's leadership ability, say they're a leader at their
Oh,
high school.
okay.
How is it easy to become a leader at that next level? Is it just something that's naturally in them, or is it one of those things where it's like, hey, you went up to the next level at a D1 college, everybody's a leader, and so now you have to improve your leadership again if you truly want to be a leader at that next level.
Hmm. Yeah. I would say it would be the latter.
Yeah,
Like, I there are a bunch of misconceptions when it comes to finishing high school, getting over there, and I think that the better student athletes adjust their mindset right on time to understand that I'm going back to the bottom. I'm not going back at the top of the top. And honestly, only probably about like less than 5% of the recruits in this class still, even though they don't feel that way, which is why they're able to kind of go and play as a true freshman. And some may, but I'm just saying there are some AI type players out there, but AI is a dog. So it's kind of like, it's whatever works. And so I feel like whoever gets acclimated the best and the quickest, they're usually the ones who typically play initially. And so whoever does that consistently, they're usually the ones who start. And then they pretty much own that. They don't own it because every spot's not pretty much set in stone, but they pretty much know what it's like. And I think just the consistency, drives the ownership is where I like it because I feel like, for me, a lot of things like I'm not striving for perfection. I'm just looking to just be consistent, and I think that's just a better way to think about things.
yeah. So I mean, basically, it sounds like it's really a mentality. Whoever can adjust their mentality the quickest to that next level is probably going to have the most success.
Yeah. Because then at that point, there's not really you can't lead if you don't know what you're leading and how to do it if you haven't been in those experiences to kind of adjust from. And so a high school game experience as a high school level captain at a varsity level, that's not going to be big to everybody if you're not like at a big school in that area that people are familiar with. They won't look at it like that. And so, what's a common practice that you could use no matter where you're at, like a capital? Because that's kind of what capital was like. Whatever our theme is, what are we about? And I think Vandy is more so about getting stuff out the mud. So we talking about like out the mud university. That's just our theme. And so when it comes to capital, I look at it in the same light because it's the same thing. I feel like that's kind of what's going to help you drive and shape your focus when you kind of get to the next level because there are just so many things that a freshman's not going to be able to lead a group like that at that level because just for lack of preparation, it's not their fault.
Right. So one of the questions that we have, and I like to ask everybody this question, but especially you, because I'm trying to think about who we've had on this podcast that was like a competitor, like a high level competitor at the high school level. And I'm trying to think, I know we had some, but typically we ask them about like who they enjoy coaching against. But one of our kind of our mottos or taglines for this podcast is, even though we compete in different uniforms, we're all a part of the same home team. Like if you're in Sacramento or the surrounding areas and you have a desire to use your platform as a coach or an athlete to make this city better, then even though we compete against each other, we're all a part of this home team. But that being said, we are still competitors and we like to win on those Friday night games, right? And so, who
Yeah.
is who's thinking back to your high school days, right? Here in Sacramento, who is someone that you competed against that you love competing against because they were an incredible athlete, but also an incredible person?
Uh, you see, I don't even think I've been asked this question like this before because my answer is going to change.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be someone we played against. Can it be somebody like we either played with or somebody like that?
Yeah, 100%.
Or are you
Anybody,
talking?
yeah, someone from this area, the Sacramento area or the surrounding areas that, maybe you watched them play and you just had a lot of respect for. I feel like you were like thinking about like all the names of dudes you just dominated when you were playing. That's the look I got from this.
No,
If you guys are just listening, you're not
no,
looking at him. He's like, man,
no.
I didn't respect any of these clowns. No.
Nah, that's just, but that's what I wasn't even gonna. I was gonna say one of my teammates because if it's not gonna be one of them,
Yeah.
it's literally dang. And we're talking about just football or just in general.
Any sport that you played, yeah, and it could be a teammate, like really
Oh,
I mean, usually we like to have our guests pick someone that they competed against,
picks
but
right, right, right.
if it's like a teammate's coming to mind, hey man, this the floor is yours, so go for it.
Oh, okay. So I kind of more of a kind of a two part, but I can answer that.
Okay.
In basketball, I think one of our favorite games is just competing against somebody else with Sakai. That had to
Yeah.
be probably like our everybody anticipated that game so
Right.
much, even
Right.
if it was a foundational game, because for years that was our foundational game, and so that that changed a lot for us because when we were seniors, Christian and Devin and Christian, Devin, and all them were 2016, so they were like a couple years younger than us, and so talking about it in that light and playing against them as we're all kind of growing up, I'm like, dang, like, and they're all finishing college right now, and we already been done, or people are
Wow.
still playing, and so I think our biggest matchup or our best matchup that we always had a great time playing against them because we're all former Yellow Jacket members, so that's kind of like we were able to put on not only for that org back in the day, but for our city, whether it was us at the championship in Gridley or if we're at the the St. Hope Classic or if we're, at sorry, well, I don't know, we could be anywhere and just kind of having that mutual respect because we literally are locals
Yeah.
who produce some like great talent. And I think we have some great mutual respect for each other. So that was always going to be great times looking forward. And I think personally, playing against, if I had to pick somebody, dang, like I would say, local talent. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna have to come back to me on that one, but
That's all
I will
good.
think of it before we're done with this.
Okay, yeah, it's all good. Like I said, it is a tough question. It's one that I'm always interested in because some people are like, man, I have to really think about that. But that just shows how much you've competed. Like you've played a lot of games, a lot of minutes, a lot, you know what I mean? So it's like there's
Yeah,
a lot of people to go through. And then other coaches or athletes are like, oh, I know someone right away. And I mean, they're just, I mean, they have someone in their mind, without even knowing the question. So it's all good,
yeah,
man. It is a tough question. It's not an easy one by any means.
right.
So,
Oh,
um,
good.
but hey, so let's just check out some of my questions real quick, just make sure I don't miss anything super important. We
Yeah.
kind of hit on all of it. So let me ask you this, man, before we get out of here, just kind of the big question, and you alluded to it when we first started. So I'm really interested to hear what your full answer to this question is. But again, thinking about our home team here in Sacramento, the place you grew up, the place you're currently coaching, the place that you're currently having just a ton of influence and impact. At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, like what do you want your legacy to be for this home team here in Sacramento?
Oh, that's a good one. What do I want my legacy to be for the home team of Sacramento? We're talking about putting me up there with like AG. See, when I think of like, Sacramento, I think of, the Aaron Garcia's, Coach Cole. There's so many greats even before me, even years before me, even when Eric, a couple of years before me with Eric and Shaq, like those are the kind of things that, I just being a part of those lists, it changes everything because I felt like you never really get to live a normal life. You know what I mean? You don't really ever get to experience the normalcies that everybody in America is able to kind of go through. And so I feel like that shapes, how you would answer this. And I feel like, my legacy, for me is as long as I'm having a good time, I'm having fun, and I'm doing what I love. I don't even think that I think everybody else could probably fill in the rest for me because I think at that point you would have already gotten to know me and we've already probably shared, any gifts of God that, kind of brought us together, whether that was athletically, academically, or, socially. And I think that that's just kind of probably going to be that just being consistent and being the funny one. Sometimes I feel like I get marked as being the loud one and the rude, mean one, but I don't even know how I get to be the mean one when
The mean
I
one.
can't. sometimes I
What?
can't be the shy one. Like people don't understand that I used to be a shy person, but now nobody could believe it. So maybe I'm just growing with the times.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, man. Even though you and I don't know each other very well, I feel like mean is not a word I've ever heard associated with you. That happens sometimes,
Oh
huh?
God, no, I mean like I can't do the running for them. So when somebody needs a little bit of extra encouragement, I'm just like, man, like we're running because you just didn't want to do it. Like there's nothing I can do for you at that point. So and
Yeah.
I think at that point, those are just some lessons that kids kind of need. And that's kind of that little thing probably might change the trajectory of their life one day.
Oh, 100%. I've said it a ton on this podcast. Like, as much as coaches, as people who want to motivate athletes, like as much as we want to try to get them to do something specific, like at the end of the day, all we can do is try to motivate them and encourage them and try to be there for them to be a sounding board. But at the end of the day, they're the ones that have to lift the weight. They have to do the sprints. They have to put the helmet on and get out there and compete. You know, they have to be in there in the classroom, right? Like they're the ones that have to do the work in the classroom
Right.
too. So it's like I feel like that's got to be one of the most frustrating parts about coaching, where it's like as much as you want it for them, if they don't want it for
Yeah.
themselves, then it doesn't matter.
And I think that truly was one of my initial battles at the beginning because I think I struggled with how do I coach this? Like, do I coach it that everyone's going to be that since I popped out and became like, an All American at this little school, that everybody can do it? That ain't realistic for everybody. So I got to play to the strengths on what we got. And I think that if I wasn't under the correct leadership and the, leadership that I was able to trust and kind of, buy in, I wouldn't be able to kind of understand how it would go, but then kind of where I saw my own part, and I think that goes to my legacy, and I think the legacy I want to leave is that they were cared about, they had fun, and then they learned about God, and that's pretty much all that I could really test because the technique and all that, that's all gonna come just by just us being around because like I know what it's like to be misrepresented at first or kind of like have some preconceived notions about doing certain things, and so once those kind of get disproved or people kind of see themselves do it, I always liked it when you kind of see your player achieve something that they weren't able to do like minutes ago or moments ago, and so that sort of triumph is what was just one of the many things I enjoy about being a coach.
I love it, man. That's why we like having you on here, man. We always appreciate the answers, the insight. And I could keep you here forever, man, but I'm not going to because like I said, we try to keep this at 45 to be respectful to our
Yeah,
guests. So but
all
next
good,
time we have you on, man, I'll have plenty more questions for you. Um,
all
but
good.
that being said, and I don't know if you want to talk about this real quick before we get out of here.
Mhm.
You guys as aced, you guys have something coming up, right? With a golf tournament or a golf classic is like a fundraiser of some kind. Is that right?
Yes, she probably is referring to the Capital Cup that should
Thank
be
you. Couldn't
coming
remember
up
the name.
in the next couple months. We'll have details for that coming up shortly, but it should be in about the fall time, which right now I'm thinking it's closer to September. Last we talked about it, but I'll get a date for sure and make sure that you know. But that is coming up. Supports a lot of our kids in our program, and I think we have about upwards of 35 plus. So the
Wow.
program's getting bigger because we're expanding and our resources have to as well. So I'll do it every day if we keep getting more kids that want to come up and do, the same thing that we did, but this time in their own way. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. So you guys keep an eye out for that. Like I said, make sure you follow Nephi on all social media. Nephi, where can they follow you, man? Social media, where can they follow Ace? All those things.
Oh, good. Yeah. Neefeeze, Neefeezee. Some with underscore, some without, but you will find it. I promise you. And after that Alabama video, just type in my name. So people won't have a hard time finding me. Now, when it comes to Ace, it's actually at the Ace Suite on Instagram and Twitter. We actually also have an app. So
Hey,
on
man, I
all
downloaded it.
platforms, on Google Play and Apple Store. Go ahead and download our Ace app, which kind of has all the updates on magazines, newsletters, tutoring options. There's literally so much. That's our communication app that we'll be using for not only our Ace students, but our new program, our Ace Leadership program that we designed. this past year as well for kids who probably aren't part of the ACE program but still want to be and to kind of still be involved. So many things going on, and God's just blessing us right now.
That's awesome. Yeah. Hey man, I just I downloaded the app. It's on my phone right now,
Oh,
and
hey,
I left a review too.
sure.
Not a
Let's
big deal.
ride.
Come on.
Hey, if it helps anybody, Shireen designed that app in about probably like 2 weeks. And that
Really?
just tells you one of just the many things our ED is capable of. It's showing her employees that she cares about them, but literally it's showing the kids how much she cares about them, because I will be the testament until, my time is up. I'm literally the first kid in this program, and like literally I think we've all called her mom at least one time, or she's shown us that sort of mannerism during our lifetime and even our time through high school. So like, it's really great.
Man, I'm gonna say it. I've said this on other podcasts, but I always like, if I have a chance and opportunity to share this, I always like to do it. So obviously I worked with Shireen for however many years, I can't remember at this point, but a decent amount of years
Yeah.
that I shared. She was kind enough to allow me to sit on the other side of her desk. Like, we shared a desk, not just an office. We shared a desk. It was incredible. It was incredibly crammed in there, but she was kind enough to let me do that. And I've always told people this, and I will say this forever: probably one of the most compassionate people I know,
Oh
has
yeah.
the biggest heart that I know. And when you say that she cares about the students, when she cares about you guys as a team, like, that comes out in
Yeah.
every post, that comes out in everything she says and does. And just an incredible person that is doing amazing things. And like I said, man, sitting across from her all those years, seeing the moments where she's celebrating for students, where she's crying for students, and her heart's breaking for students, like,
Yeah.
man, you'll like, I would challenge anybody to find someone that's more compassionate. Like, she's just an incredible person. um that's actually, let's end on this, man. Usually I like to ask our guests, if there's, when you think back to a coach that had like a tremendous impact on your life, like, what is a phrase, what is a lesson that you learned from them that really, like, you still hold to this day and impacts your life to this day? That's what I would normally ask. But in this situation, since we both know Shireen, and we know a lot of people that are probably listening to this and know Shireen, you said it, she had this tremendous impact on your life as, the first class, you being the first class of E's students through ACE. What is something, maybe a lesson, or maybe it was even like a thought or a phrase that she shared with you that has always stuck with you even to this day?
Yeah. There's so much,
Sure, it's hard to pick one,
but
right?
there is. But honestly, and it's really nothing for me, at least. It's nothing too extravagant. Like, there's no personal story. It's just a consistency, and I find it like it's it sucks. I can explain it better, and I'm gonna find a way how before the next 10 seconds. But I can start off by saying that right now it's the consistency in everything that she does, and I think the biggest part of that consistency is just how she loves when she does it, because there's no time limit on it. There's no time limit on anything, and there is no sort of she's not expecting anything in return. And Shireen could, she'd probably give her house away to everybody. Just that's just kind of the person she is. And so uh, knowing that that hadn't changed over 12 plus years now is that's what I appreciate in that, because I just a lot of people in our position coming in here, we have similar backgrounds and stories, and some of that is due to just filling a void, and Shireen was able to help us fill that void daily in a bunch of different ways. And I've seen her do it now, you know, 10 times over, 12 times total so far, and every year we've been gone. And so we're about to be out 8 years, and there's about to be like the ninth class is coming up. And so there's so much going on. Like, our 10 years coming up. There's so I think that if it wasn't for her to kind of help keep that stable and that consistency, Ace probably wouldn't exist right now.
Let me just drop the mic right there. That's where we're gonna end this thing, man. Nephi, as always, man, I appreciate your time, especially with as busy as you are, man. I appreciate the time for
Yeah.
sure. And
I appreciate you, especially, I apologize for, the inconvenience of all this, but if anything, no matter how long, I'll always make sure to hop on the podcast with you. I appreciate you a lot, Josh.
Hey, man, like I said, like we talked about before, man, not an inconvenience at all. Like you said, hey, stuff happens. A few minutes late, it's all good, man. At least I told you, at least you showed up. Some of these other clowns that I've had on the podcast before don't even show up and then don't respond back to like, hey, man, are we still doing this? No response. They ghost me. And so you still showed up. You were here. We had a great conversation. So, man, you have nothing to apologize for. Appreciate you, man.
All good. I appreciate you.
All right, man. Well, hey, good luck with everything. Take care. And, man, we're so thankful to have you a part of this home team, man.
No problem. God bless, and thank you for having me.
All right.